spot everything. Let's start. Welcome everyone. My session. I have 3 slides, I believe. So let's skip the disclaimer one for now. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Wouter Kursten. I work as professional service engineer for Control Up. I've got a couple of certifications. I do some things every now and then in the community. I'm a vExpert, EUC champion, VMware code coach. You can find my blog at retouw.nl, and you can follow me on Twitter and email me if you want. And every now and then I also put some stuff on GitHub. So what is this session about? Horizon APIs, short history, and this is the last slide that I will actually show. First modules back in 2010, first usable APIs for Horizon actually released in end of 2016 with early versions of Horizon 7, PowerCLI, what version was 6.5 if I'm not mistaken. And since version 7, Horizon 7.10, there's also a REST API. As of version 8, it's not feature complete yet, but it is usable, so we can do some things with it. So let's move this thing and get some PowerShell going. So one of the things how I always start for my, when I use APIs for Horizon, you have to make connection, of course. These days, I have my credentials stored in an XML file. And I always store, I'm using the SOAP API, by the way, right now, and I will go to the REST API later. There it is. And it should be able to connect. Okay, so I'm connected now to my secondary connection server. And if you get started with it, it is always easy to also connect to the extension data directly to the services. Is $HV server.extension data. And when we look in here, you'll see all the methods that we have directly available from those services. It's not all of them, there are more of them. You can also do queries and some other things, but this is the main part that you can actually use. So for example, and oh, I don't have that here, so I will get something else. I wanted to show UAG health, but that's in my other pod. For example, virtual center health, this will show you the health statistics for your virtual center. Yes, it's still called virtual center in here. They never change it, so. Luckily, we have auto-complete. And if you do the get, and I will show it to you right now, you actually need to supply a virtual center ID. And I will show that later. But with this one, we also have list. And if you look good here, the brackets are empty, so we can actually use it directly to get the virtual center held. So what do we have in here? This is the actual virtual center ID that I would have needed for the get command. We have some data in the health data. Connection server data, it's the only thing in here. The hosts that are connected, so these are the ESXi hosts and the data stores that I have available. And if you're just exploring things, you can always store things in a variable dot. And here you see the actual health of all my data store objects. So for this one, for example, is one of my trials. Name, data store name, VDI 500. It's accessible. This is the pod where you can actually find it in vCenter. Data store type, capacity, and a free space. and this is where it is mounted. But for example, we also have the data itself for the vCenter. What does it have? The URL for the vCenter. So if you want to have, if you have multiple vCenters, you can find them all in the vCenter data, because then you will have multiple objects, version, the build, API version. So that's just some of the things that you can view. Now let's do some other funky stuff. Yeah, funky stuff. Not that difficult. Let's see if I actually have some desktops published. And I'm not going to type everything, because that would go way too slow for you. When you do a query, so if you get desktops, if you want to retrieve machines or sessions, you always have to do a query. So always connect first to the query service. After this, we are going to create a definition for the query that we're actually going to do. That's the definition object. In that object, you set the query entity type, the desktop summary view in this case, because I want to find desktop pools. So a desktop in the Horizon APIs often is actually the desktop pool, and the machines in the desktop pools are machines. Now, I'm not going to filter in this case, so I'll just do the query, and I'm storing it again in a variable. And if I would do results right now, it will be useless, because it is actually stored in the results object. Now, what do we have? We have the IDs for the desktop pools, but inside the desktop summary data, we see a lot more. This makes it a bit more accessible. So with this one, it is a summary view of the desktop, so you don't see a lot of information. But what do we see? We see the name, and actually display name if it's different. The pool is enabled. It's not deleting. It is an automated pool with instant clones, floating assignments. With this ID, you would be able to get the AD group. Again, this is your virtual center ID that we previously saw. Here you would see the global entitlement, if it is member of a global entitlement. Provisioning is enabled for this one. It has 2 machines. There are no sessions. If you do your good maintenance, what you actually do, because you can't do too many queries, you need to clean up. Delete all. With that, all my old queries are cleaned up, and I only have the data stored in a variable. Now, we also, for now, I would like to say, what sessions do I actually have? To get sessions, there are several options. You can search the global sessions, or you can search local sessions. And global sessions are actually one of the few things that you can do from one desktop pod to another desktop pod without having to reconnect. So I create the global session query service. Note that this is a different service than the query I just used. I'm creating the spec for it, the definition. I create an array where I'm going to put all sessions. And this I will explain for a bit. So what I'm actually going to do, because for the global sessions, you can actually search per pod, so you can get all sessions. So I go do for every pod in the HV service.pod_list. And I can show it later what it shows, but it has all the pods in there because I have 2 pods in my cloud pod strategy. There is a question, by the way. Yes, I am doing this live, and I do have the presentation uploaded on our GitHub with a lot of samples in there. So you can use that, and I will show the link to my blog because I also have a lot of code on my blog, and I can share this as well if you want. So I get the pod ID, and again, I'm storing the results in the query results, and I will just keep going until I've done all of them. And with a bit of luck, I now should have some sessions in my session list. Now, well, what's in there? In the names data, we see that I've made a typo in my global entitlement for the global notepad. And you see it's global pool 2. And in the base names, here you see even more information. This was user 1 that's connected. He's connected to this desktop machine with this DNS. The Horizon agent on this is version 8. This is your desktop pool. Again, it's an automated pool with instant clones. My client IP address is my own desktop that I'm working from now. Well, the client name is Retau. Again, client version is also 8. And I've used this connection server to actually connect. And that has this address. So now you know everything about my home lab. But there's more. We also had session data. The reference data, I can show it. But it doesn't contain too much. It contains all kinds of IDs, the site, pods, things like that. Session data. Okay, here we see some more information about session type. It's a desktop, but here you see I actually have an application session. Protocol blast, disconnected. This is when it was started, how long it is taking, how it was, and some broker information. We can do even more things if you want, but let's skip to the REST APIs because that's the newest, and that hasn't been out for too long yet. So let's go to that. The REST APIs, and I will actually show it here, and this is also some information that you can use yourself. On the VMware code site, we do have the API explorers, and there is this link to the 7.12 one, and I've put some links in the last slide that I will put up in the end with some more links. Here's the API explorer for version 8. And it shows you all the things that you can actually do. But it's even better because these days we also have a Swagger page. And it should be like this. Nope. I will grab the other one. So let's go to the Swagger page. This is the same connection server that we were just looking at. Swagger page. I will show you how you can actually authenticate to the Swagger page because you need the key that you create when you create a new session. But again, here you can monitor everything what's happening, all statuses, inventory. You can actually see sessions, only local, not the global sessions yet. You can send messages to users if you want. So we've got all kinds of examples that you can actually do with whatever. Some things you might need to play with, but it's a good page to at least get familiar with what's available in the Horizon REST APIs. Now let's get back to coding again. Where are we? Here. Get this back. So again, I've still got my credentials stored. Right now I'm going to split them. Not that. No, I've stored them in a different one. So let's do it like this. And with a bit of luck, I can show you my username now, and even my domain. If you would see my webcam, if I would turn off my virtual background, you will see why it's called loft, because I'm in the loft up here from my house. To actually use the password, we need to make it unsecure. It's stored securely in the credential file, so not everyone can read it. But to actually use it, we need to make it less secure. And now I will copy paste some functions that I've actually stolen from my good friend Andrew Morgan. Or actually stolen. I think it's what most coders and scripters do. The best code that you use is stolen from someone else, except for you maybe, Guy. But this is the get HR header. We'll get the access token that we'll need later. Open connection and close connection. So let's do our first thing and get my access token. And of course, I have got a typo somewhere. Where is my URL? It is useful if you actually provide your URL up front. So I'm connecting to that. Let's copy paste this again. There you see the actual access token. And if I would copy this to my clipboard, you would actually see that I would be able to authenticate to the Swagger URL and while placing bearer in front of this. There's not extreme amount of time, so we'll probably not be doing that. So what can we do with this? For example, I want to see what domain accounts are used for access clones, for the instant clones, sorry. So with this one, I invoke the REST method, I do a get on the URL REST config v1 instant clone domain accounts. Well, this is really standard, and in the headers, I just pass the header with the access token. You'll see the ID domain is actually an ID, and the username is sapod_2. Now with SOAP APIs, it took me, I don't need that, let me copy passing sometimes is a mess. But for example, with the SOAP APIs, it took me several lines to create the query, to set the definition, and actually to get the desktop pools with the REST APIs is a matter of doing one line. And it even gives more information. And I will get so this, for example, is the first one. And if I want to go deeper into the settings, if you want to change settings for a regular pool, I don't believe changing settings for desktop pools, I'm not sure if it's available already in the REST API, but for a regular pool, you would need to create a helper function and do all kinds of things. But for this, you can already properly see all the settings that's happening in the desktop pool. So no deletion in progress. You've seen these things already. But session settings, well, what do we have in there? Power policy always on. When are they going to disconnect? When the timer pulls for disconnection, never for me. Can they reset their machine? No, not allowed. Multiple sessions, we don't do that. And these things are not as easy visible inside the SOAP APIs. Now, for the display protocol settings, well, what protocols are actually allowed to use? We can use BLAST, P/P, RDP. They default to BLAST. The users are allowed to choose their own protocol. They can connect using HTML. Such collaboration is disabled, and it's using the standard GPU from the vSphere. So what else? Well, let's see what we actually have in machines. What settings can we see there? I'll directly store it again. For this, I will actually grab the last one. So here you get even more information. Name of the machine, DNS name. It is available. It is managed. Right there, you don't see that it is an instant clone. You see the OS, Windows 10, 64-bit. Information about the agent. But even more information is visible under the managed machine data. ESXi host that is running on, and if you would want to do that with SOAP API, you would have to do yet another API call to actually get this information, because you would only get the ID of the host name, the path. So this is your folder path in vSphere. It is powered on. It has 6 gigs of RAM. You can see what disks it has and the size and on what data store it's stored. It's not missing a vCenter. Sometimes you will see that happening. And the create time as an epoch. And it's not a maintenance mode. Hey, it's an instant clone. Yes, they still have maintenance mode for when users log off. Any more funky things that we can do? Machines. What I will do with this one, I'm going to actually reset this machine. Let's prepare. Let's do some actions against them. Let's log in to the admin. While that's going, I will prepare some of the things in PowerCLI or in PowerShell. Nope, that's not what I need. I need this. First, I will create a body with 2 machines that I'm actually going to give a reset. And let's see if, for example, this is there already. Thomas is asking if the Swagger page API, if that's available by default. Yes, it is available by default, but I have seen that the REST APIs some of them might only be available for enterprise customers. I'm not sure how that is. I've seen it working on others as well, as far as I know, but there's a chance that it's only available for enterprise customers. but it is available by default. I did not change anything for it. So here we have my machines. We have a couple of connected. And now let's see if I can actually reset those machines. So what I'm doing, I've just created the body with 2 machines. I did that here. First 2 machines, and they're all instant clones, so it doesn't matter. And what I'm doing, I'm going to use a post this time against the machines action reset, provide that body, and with a bit of luck, I'm getting status code 200, so that should be okay. Right now, if I do a refresh here, you see this one is provisioned, so it's going now. This one is going in maintenance mode because this had a user logged on, so both are being reset actually. And again, with the SOAP APIs, it would be more work because you had to do a query, get 2 of the machines, put those in thing, and then with a separate method, you could actually reset more of them, but this is a bit easier. Now, some information about RDS farms. Do we have that? Yes, we have it. Let's see what we have on RDS farms. Only have 1 farm, again an instant clone, and the same things that you previously saw. So I do a get on the inventory for farms, and I actually get the farms back. And you can also see, I'm going to combine 2 now, because with farms we also have applications, of course. So I get the farm object first, then I select farm ID. And I'm actually use get with the farm ID for the applications, the installed applications. So these are not the published applications that I do with this one. These are all the installed application on this server that I would be able to create an application for in Horizon RDS. Are there any more questions? I'm not seeing the chat right now. I have had 2 in. Oh, there's chat. And as the last one, I wanted to show you, scrolling through all this document is on the GitHub for the Code Connect, and I'm going to the last page. If you want to know more, you can find the SOAP API Explorer at this URL. This is, I think, for 7.12. REST API Explorer is also available there. If you're not on the VMware Code Slack channel yet, please join us. I'm almost always there. And if you want to get started on working with the SOAP APIs, search for the Back to Basics series on my blog. And if you want to start working with the Horizon REST API, I've created a blog post as well about getting started with the Horizon REST API. And with that, I thank you for attending, and I will see you next time.
Cool. Thank you so much. As we're wrapping up, I just want to, well, first of all, thank you again, but I sent a survey into the chat. If you guys could take a second to give your feedback before you hop off the call. If you've been on any of the other calls, it's the same survey. So if you already have the link, feel free to use that one again. But yeah, thank you. I'll let you guys hop on to the next session. Awesome. I'll see you later today, Wouter.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.